Septage, especially when the underlying geology of this county is fractured rock, mostly limestone fissures, that when you've got wells and septage coming out of the same fissures and mixing and matching, you've got a witch's brew that is dangerous to public health and should not be part of our policy. It is very difficult to develop these places safely, and while there are engineering feats that may be possible to take place here, as a general policy to do this in fractured rock is setting people up for the kinds of neighbor disputes and issues that we've been facing all throughout my district, where you sink a well deeper and you run somebody else dry. You're doing it on 1 acre subdivisions. This is not good long-term planning or public policy. It's extremely expensive, both to the county and its all of our agencies that have to somehow sort out the mess after the fact. It would be better to have a small ounce of prevention being worth a ton of cure, and I would hope that this board, knowing that this is going to be one of the toughest issues we've ever dealt with, will take public safety, underlying geology, water availability, and consider those things as we formulate the implementation measures in our general plan. And we have so many of these things already. One more, I suppose you could say, won't make a difference, and that's really the kind of thinking that got us into the level of hole that we are in now on this very topic. So let's approach this with some serious study before we create long-term policy. We have an interim one, and we're acting on that today. But before we do something for 10, 20, 30 years, let's really think this through and let science be our guide.
This area is on public water. It is not on wells.
I believe so, yes.
Correct. I know so.
Okay.
It's CCWD water source.
Yes, CCWD water.
Right. But they're never.
Yeah, a lot of other wells down the slope.
Straight down the slope. That's the problem.
Anyway, that's fine. I say it's not just on-site wells. I mean, if you get into the underground water, it's obviously going to leave the site.
That's right. Even uphill.
I mean, I'll vote for this for the same reason I voted on the last one, but I hope we have an earnest discussion in the general plan component of this, because really what we're going to get into is that, earlier when I first sort of came on the board, we had lots of problems with 4x4 splits, and now we're going to do it where you have something like this and you split off 1 acre. And you keep a residual, and you then sell that to your daughter, who then splits off another acre, who then takes the residual and sells it to your son, who then splits off another acre, and we just sort of go down to 4x4ing, only it's 2x2ing or whatever the heck it is. And I don't see that as being it being probably applicable here, because I don't think you can get below 1 acre, so this is the end of it.
Correct.
And we haven't had, I don't see it being a big problem if we get the general plan done in a timely manner, but if we leave it unaddressed, that's what's going to happen. And you're just going to go through the family members splitting off 1 acre or 5 acres or whatever, because we have a one lot or one time exemption. You just move it to your next child, to your next child, to your next child, and then your grandchildren. And in the end, you split the whole thing, and and it sort of defeats the whole purpose of the policy. So those are my thoughts.
Okay, thank you, Gina.
You're welcome.
I'd like to open the public hearing. Is there anyone who has an item?
Yeah, my concern on the size of the parcels being small, but yet it's an acre. With an acre, they can still put an in-law on it, so you'd have actually 2 dwellings on it. And the in-law is a federal mandated program, though, so you're sort of stuck with it. And so when you're doing this, with that parcel being 1 acre, you're looking at a possibility of having 2 dwellings on that parcel. And so I think the board would be actually to go just a tab under an acre, and you at least be barring them coming in on the federal grant and putting an in-law on it.
Thank you.
I'm the owner of the parcel we're speaking about.
Could you
And-
identify yourself for the record, please? Thank you.
Yeah, my name is Lou Esquivel, and I own the property at 122 Recurring Drive, which is the one on the item number 17. I just want to mention the fact that I already have a cabin built on part of that site, and we have water. We have county water coming in, and if we split the property, right now the property has mixed zoning. It has recreation and R3. So my request was to split the property into two 1-acre parcels with water on both lots, obviously, public water, and zone R1 versus R3 that I currently have on one lot, and recreation on the other side. So my request is to, like I said, to split the property into two 1.1 and 1 acre lots respectively, and I will have public water built into the second parcel. Okay. Appreciate it. Thanks.
Before Mr. Esquivel goes away.
Yes. Could you please come up, Mr. Esquivel?
Mr. Esquivel,
Supervisor Thomas has a question.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I have a question for you. Sir, in the staff report here, it says that during the Planning Commission hearing on this item that you willingly agreed that it would be okay with you to put R1 zoning on this parcel that we're creating. I just want to get that clarified. That you do not have any continuing desire to have it be either rec or R3. You're requesting R1.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any other public comments? Okay, I'd like to close public comment and bring it back to the board. I support this change. Is there any other discussion? Otherwise, I'd like the courtesy of motions on this, please.
Yes, Madam Chair, I see no conflict with this application. This is, I'm not sure exactly why this parcel appears to be a remnant from perhaps when the subdivision was originally created. This was viewed as a potential rec site, but it's creating, in my mind, two parcels that are totally consistent with all the other parcels in the subdivision. It has CCWD water, and I'm confident, as in the past, that our Director of Environmental Resources, specifically the people that are going to be permitting this new septic system, if they find that this particular parcel is not conducive to a septic system being created on this, they will not issue a permit. So Mr. Esquivel will have a nice parcel that he can't build on. But anyway, that is out of our control. So with having said that, I would make the motion that we take the Planning Commission recommendation and we pass this motion to authorize the chair to sign a resolution to adopt the proposed mitigated negative declaration and MMRP prepared for this project, subject to the findings contained. The Planning Commission, we accepted a Planning Commission recommendation to the Board of Supervisors to pass a motion authorizing the chair to sign an ordinance to approve this application 2008-063 zoning amendment based on the findings and conditions contained therein. And we also accept the recommendation from the Planning Commission to the Board of Supervisors and pass a motion authorizing the chair to sign a resolution to approve tentative parcel map 2008-063 based on the findings and conditions contained therein.
May I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes on a 5-0. Thank you very much. You all doing Okay, I'd like to move to item 18, a resolution authorizing the director to accept the bid and award an agreement between the county and Herzig for construction of the West Point Bikeway. Thank you. And Jonathan, could you please identify yourself?
Jonathan Mitchell, Public Works. I'm here for Tom Garcia this morning to answer any questions regarding items 18 and 19.
Okay, does any other board besides
Is this an exception to the rule?
If I might be permitted in just a moment, this is now almost to the day 8 years since 90% of the town of West Point petitioned the county to put a bike path in for a safe route to school from where people live to the school itself. As part of that petition, people noted that we give every kid a rehab bike. We recycle things that are thrown out at the dump, actually wind up, or donated, wind up fixed, and most of our kids there actually have a bike, but a highly dangerous route from their house to get to their school. So this is maybe not moving at warp speed, but we are thrilled to come to this day where we're actually in, this is only for phase 1 of 3 phases, and it's a little bit of money to do a little bit of work, but the town will be thrilled nevertheless. It's a patient place, and we're just glad to see the moment happen.
Very, very wide range of dollar amounts on the bids.
Yeah, that was
It's very, very large difference. Usually you look for 10 to 15% difference, but geez.
Well, and we have a local contractor that won the bid, so that's also a nice feature here.
Okay, is there any other questions from Mr. Mitchell? Are there any public comments on this project? Okay. May I have a motion, Supervisor Walensky?
You sure may. I move to adopt the attached resolution forthwith.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Jonathan, did you want to come back for the next one? All opposed? It passes.
You got ahead of yourself there, didn't you?
Yeah, I did.
Are you on 19 now?
Yeah, I
Madam Chair?
did. I just moved second and did it all by myself. Jonathan, on item number 19 for the stimulus project for the 1 point
That's the one that was so close.
million. Did you have anything you wanted to add to this?
No, again, just here to answer any questions.
Okay, we've talked about this several times in board.
I'll move the resolution, Madam Chair.
Tom, let me ask, are there any public comments? Would you like to give us donations for the 1 million so we don't have to get the taxpayers to do it, Mr. Segal?
Check my resources. This is part of a trend which is alarming. If you have a teenager acting irresponsibly, you don't contribute to the delinquency of a minor. You're very careful. If it has to do with car keys, you take the car keys. If it has to be, if it's irresponsible handling of money, well, you be careful with, don't let that irresponsible teenager have the money so they can be, so they can develop wisdom someday. Well, we are existing in a time now where we have the state government and the federal government both irresponsible in handling money. The federal government has done, I guess our grandkids now are being obligated to pay for expenditures that they're doing now, and this is really unsound economics. And the state government can't even do a budget. And so, but here we are, we're a government entity, and we're closer to the people. It seems that attachment, being close to the people, would tend to make us more responsible because we know you well, and you can't run anywhere. You can't go to Sacramento or escape to Washington. You're very close to us.
because you are more responsible, you'll need to actually be careful in dealing with these other irresponsible government entities. Don't encourage them to spend so much money. Don't encourage. It seems like the trend now is for local governments to actually hire people to find grants, to find ways to get money from the state or from the federal government, contributing to their delinquency. They don't have money to give you. They're bankrupt, both of them, and yet we're going through the same process, hoping we get something. It's kind of like being the hog, and the hog says, well, if I don't go to the trough, somebody else will, and so I might as well get in the trough too and get my share. Well, if we can break out of that mental box a little bit, and perhaps through the associations of CSAC and other associations, start changing this process whereby we fund our own stuff, and hopefully most of the stuff we do is handled by people without using plunder, without taking money from some to give to others. So in this case, we have a public works project that could on itself be good. I'm not sure, if it's there just to spend money or not, which it could be. And I would suggest that you not approve this to avoid contributing to the delinquency of another level of government.
So,
Thank you.
Mr. Segalin, let me understand you.
Sure.
You're saying that as a board, we should no longer accept any grants or go after any monies for us to expand services or provide services to the residents, to just use the property tax dollars that we have?
I think that you should consider changing the trend. There's circumstances now where you're almost totally dependent upon these other levels of government for your existence. And not only that, the amount of control that the state is exercising in their internal affairs in Calaveras County is almost total. The amount of discretion that you have as a board is pretty minimal. Practically everything you do is controlled policy-wise by the state. Now, that's another thing. Okay, the two things that I would, as a citizen and a taxpayer, would recommend you do is shift and represent the people here. Don't try to be administrators for the federal government or the state government so much. I know that we can't wean this off at once because we're so dependent upon both these levels now, but if we can break out of the mindset that we need to continue this forever, then it won't continue forever. We might be able to correct it. And so gradually, we need to wean ourselves away from this control by the state and also the federal government, and kind of return to Republican principles, where local government controls local things.
So if we didn't have Prop 13, then we could come up with $1 million for fixing the roads in Calaveras County.
The fairest...
That's the whole, anyway, you and I can talk about this over a beer someday, but...
I like red wine.
But red wine's fine. But your position is we should not support using money to fix this money to fix Calaveras County roads.
I don't want to... our doctor friends have a saying that if, above all else, do no harm. And so I'm not sure that decision would actually be an improvement or not. The direction I know is not right, but I'm not so aware of the need of this particular thing in our county as to whether we really need to do it and use their money to do it. I know we don't have the money ourselves right now to do that, and so it means that the consequences would be it won't get done. And so that's why I'm not saying that you should vote against this unless you have information that this really isn't that necessary. In that case, do vote against it.
Well, I will speak on my behalf. The people who live on Miko Drive and use it would love to have their road repaired because it's probably been 30 years since it was done, and I'm assuming that's true for the others. I mean, I understand what you're saying. I think the board understands what you're saying. The reality is that the system is set up based on a grant, whether it's from state or federal. Okay, is there anyone else who would like to make a comment on this? Just,
Well, I think you guys are stuck having to approve it, but it's just like an agenda item I pulled off one time of accepting roads and stuff to make them public maintained roads, and some of the comments I got that I won't pay for it, because by the time that road deteriorates, will be gone, that my kids will pay for it. And it's the attitude of not just the board, it's the attitude of all of us. We spend, and I understand what I was saying. We need to start changing that. I mean, when we get ready to approve a road to come in and make that a county road, we have to go, okay, our kids are going to pay for the maintenance on that, and it's not good to say, well, it's going to be $140 million to improve all our roads in the county. We just keep adding to it and stuff. So, I mean, this decision, I think, is already made, and I think it'll probably be appropriate to pass it and stuff. But the thing is, all the decisions we make here as a people, that when we approve roads to come into the county and stuff, and I have a road in Valley Springs, I'd love to get into the county road system. But those do take maintenance, and right now we can't afford to maintain our roads that we have at this moment. And so, and thank God for Prop 13, because I have a hard time paying my property taxes the way it is. And if Prop 13 wasn't here, I would be living in Mexico or Arkansas or God knows where.
She's referring to a different Prop 13.
Okay. Thank you.
okay, thank you.
Marty Crane again. With regard to points well taken, this is all part of the puzzle. We all have to have our voices heard, and so these are all great points well taken and things that we can think about as we move forward. But on today's issue, I'd just like to say one thing about our roads. We're talking about a road here. This is a safety issue. And they won't be paying, if they get run over today or tomorrow, they won't be paying when I'd like to also say thank you to Russ or whoever else had anything to do with the fact that my road, Blair Drive, has been a huge head-on safety waiting to happen for years. And just recently, they've decided to actually fix it instead of putting Band-Aids on it. And so this is very exciting, because I can leave my driveway now without holding my breath. And it's a blind curve like this, and it was potholes over here because of, I guess, clay underpinnings or whatever, and it would break down and be giant potholes, so no one would drive on the right side of the road. They'd whip up on the left side with the other people coming down on the right side, head on, waiting to happen. So that's a safety issue. So thank you, and thank you for else. But today, this is a safety issue for our children. And so for $33,000, I mean, I don't know what the price tag is on one child, so.
That's the bike path.
This is the bike path. We're not talking about the bike path? Oh, well, when you get to the bike path,
We're fixing three, we already did, but we are now
I'm
trying
sorry.
to fix 3 decrepit roads.
I'm sorry, I thought we were on the bike path. So when you get to the bike path, ditto ditto.
But you're right, it is a safety issue because, well,
We did the bike path. I thought it was being clear.
It was still.
Okay. Steve, did you have a comment?
yeah, there are just 2 things for me on this. One is I'm a taxpayer, and I've been paying taxes in Calaveras County for a real long time, and I have not seen a whole lot of effort to get that back here. I agree with Al when he says that it's better to do it locally, and it's better to pay attention to local considerations and try to apply it in a thriftful way to local conditions. We have had how many study sessions and how many laments that we are not taking care of our roads. These 3 roads are a mess. We were thinking of charging on Independence going into Railroad Flat. We thought it might be good to charge it as a Mr. Toad's Wild Ride and actually try to pay for it that way. It would have been an innovative local solution. But actually nobody wants to drive it because you're taking out your tires, your suspension, and the place is kind of a mess. It also gets kind of washed out on occasion because the way water runs through there tends to undermine and ruin the road. So, and also create flood conditions over it. So each of these has a good reason and a local reason. why it was selected, and Public Works has done a good job of sorting through this. But I want my money back. I don't really think the feds are going to spend it better than we can here, and I think this is a good plan, and it's well thought through, and you can read it, it's transparent, it's something that we have before you, before all of us today. It's about safety, it's about bringing our dollars back here where we can spend it more wisely and with greater thrift, and take care of at least one small piece of what is becoming an overwhelming burden of things that weren't taken care of by past generations. I'm not suggesting that we burden future generations. I'm saying we take our tax dollars back and spend them here. So if there's no further discussion, I would...
There are 5 roads: Miko Drive, Watertown Road, Olive Orchard Road, Pennsylvania Gulch, and Independence Road. Those are the roads that will receive these funding. And I do want to thank Public Works for having shovel-ready projects so that when these opportunities come, we can apply for them.
Just one other thing as a point of information, this is kind of maybe overhashing some past history on this particular application, but if you recall, we deliberated on this months ago, where there was some sort of an oversight on the bidding process, and the recommendation from the Public Works was that we reject all the bids on this project. And if I recall the numbers, Jonathan, you might come and elaborate on this a little bit, but it was about a $900,000 contract before. We rejected those bids. Public Works, it's my understanding, they went back and they actually added to the scope of work fairly substantially, so this has come in at $100,000 more, but it has in many ways given us more because of the particular economic environment that we have right now, that these firms are bidding very aggressively, so we're getting much more for the dollars that are provided for by this ARA grant. I'm not particularly enamored with the idea of going on forever with these types of grant funding sources, but in this particular environment where we've got an extraordinarily high unemployment rate in this county, this is a $1 million worth of work that has been apparently secured by a local firm. I'm thrilled with the opportunity to put some people to work, and I'm very supportive of this. Was I right, Jonathan, that the previous go-around was $900,000, and now we've actually gone up, but we're doing much more work?
That's correct. We're adding fabric reinforcement to 2 of the roads that are in condition that warrants it. So okay. That's increased the cost for the work. So,
it's the fabric is intended to increase the longevity of the repairs. Is that correct?
Okay. Now, can I have a supervisor who would like to approve some
My motion
money?
Still is on the table.
Okay, I think I got lost in that. Do I have a second?
Yes, you do.
I have a quick comment since others have given some comments here. Frankly, I agree with everything Al Segala said, with the exception that the local level shouldn't apply for the grants when we are, in fact, eligible. I think it would be a much more efficient system if we basically just significantly reduced or even abolished grants altogether, and we knew our funding sources, and the money came in, and we made the allocations based on the priorities at the local level, or if you're a city or the like. I think, half these grants are just the state and federal politicians going out and buying votes. And every time we get a big grant and we have a ribbon cutting, why, there are all the politicians there saying, see, look what I did for you with your money, which makes, in my opinion, no sense at all. We have such an inefficient government, and and then they do grants like on the Recovery Act. I mean, this is basically coming out of the current federal administration. It's all geared to unions. There's something like 8% of the private sector is unionized and 92% is not, and yet all the recovery spending for so-called jobs are just geared to the 8% of the labor force that's unionized, and I don't think that makes any sense. Secondly, both the state and the federal government have increased the cost of public sector projects, public projects, because of prevailing wage, CEQA, Minority Practices Act when it comes to contracting, et cetera. If they would do away with those on public works projects, speaking of which, why not all projects, but at least public works projects, you would lower the cost of the public works projects by well over half. So we already have, somewhere between half and two-thirds of project costs are already basically based on waste of going for political special interest groups that have almost first dibs on the public treasury, which makes no sense at all either. And until we can get Congress to fundamentally change how they allocate funds or initiate the allocation of funds in the House of Representatives, whether it be earmarks or grants or Recovery Act or whatever, we will continue having a very wasteful, politically directed allocation of national resources. But be that as it is, we're Calaveras County, and we aren't going to change that here. We'll change that, or the citizens have an ability to change that with how they vote. But quite frankly, both the Democrats and the Republicans have been in party and have made no effort whatsoever to change the political patronage system that we have in our system. And I don't want to be partisan, but you could always vote Libertarian. Thank you. Okay, my 2 cents worth on the subject at hand.
Okay, I have a motion. Do I have a second? Oh, I have a second.
You do have a second, actually.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Supervisor Tryon does not want to accept the money for Pennsylvania Gulf.
No, I think it should
So
all go
could
to
you-
my district, and I
so
think you
could you-
folks should be punished for not voting correctly.
So could you please divvy up Pennsylvania Gulch among the rest of us? Thank you. I'd like to move to item 20. Thank you, Jonathan. We appreciate it. Pardon?
Yes,
5-0. Yeah. I did. But that doesn't mean...
Actually, she was retroactively trying to abscond with some of the funds we had just allocated. That's a whole different thing.
You're right.
Thank you. This is on the airport. Shirley, please.
Good morning. Shirley Ryan, County Administrative Office. If I might, I'd like to address both items 20 and 21 at the same time, since they both pertain to the same project at the county airport. It regards the construction of 22 hangars. If you'll recall, between the years about 2005, 2008, with FAA grants, we did site preparation for the future construction of 22 hangars. We have since worked with Mead & Hunt to develop an RFP with the estimated cost for construction of those hangars at about $1.3 million. Our airport manager has been great in dealing with the FAA and in conversations with the State Department of Transportation, and available funding for the construction of those hangars are through applications of an FAA grant in the amount of $396,692 and a low-cost loan from the state in the amount of $917,433. What these two actions will do is allow us to forward those applications for the grant and for the loan to the state and to the FAA for construction. Currently, on deposit with the airport is our 3 months rent for the future hangars with an additional waiting list. And Kathy Zancanella, our airport manager, is also here to answer any questions regarding these two items.
Okay. Go ahead, Kathy. Did you have
I
any?
just wanted to mention, I'm Kathy Zancanella with Calaveras County Airport Manager. I wanted to mention that the grant that we're applying for is money that the FAA has that comes from airplane taxes. So that's a designated amount of money that we're eligible for on a entitlement. That is an entitlement that the FAA gives to small airports to take care of the air transportation system all over the country, and that we are entitled to $150,000 a year if we have a project appropriate. In this case, we don't have a safety project as necessary like I have in the past, so we're able to use it toward the construction of hangars. The loan money that comes, the state can give us for hangars is a low-interest loan, and that state money is from aviation use that's put into a fund that is then loaned out to various small airports for this type of thing. The lady up there that holds the purse strings, I let her and my project manager know that I would be here today and getting permission to do all of these things. Project manager is already looking at the entitlement thing, so that's in the mill. And the lady that, Gwen Reese, that handles the money up at Sacramento, she asked how many hangars, how much money I had on deposit, and what my waiting list for hangars was. And when I sent that information back to her, she emailed me a nice little note that said, wow. She says, can I use these figures anonymously to demonstrate to another airport that wanted money from the state why she was turning them down? Because they weren't prepared. Calaveras County is prepared because I have Brent Harrington, Shirley, and people like that taught me how to be prepared. And so I feel very comfortable with these figures I'm giving her, or you here, that this is going to go through.
Thank you.
And if you recall in the past when we did hangar construction, the debt service on those hangars were made from the rent for that hangar space. And that's the intent of the repayment on the loan, should the board approve application for the loan and we receive that. The debt service payment will be made through rent on those hangars.
Right. Are there any questions?
How did you come up, excuse me, sorry. How did you come up with the figure of 1.3 million?
That's the engineer's estimate that the consultants got before we put the bids out.
Okay.
Hopefully, it isn't going to be that much. I'm hoping that because of the economic situation that it is, they're going to sharpen their pencils and it'll come in lower than that. But that was what I had to start with.
Okay.
Mr. Thomas?
Yes, Kathy, in looking at this plan that shows the configuration of the hangars and stuff, I see evidence that some walls have been whited out or something there. These hangars on the end, particular hangar number 1 and hangar 22, are substantially larger because of the configuration of the building.
No, those hangars, that's a 22-unit building, and it's basically the same size as the other hangars that we have on the airport. They're T hangars.
Yeah, I understand that 20 of the 22 are exactly the same size. They're T hangars. But because of the configuration as you work down to the end,
it's a larger building.
Larger hangar. It's just a simple question that the rent for those hangars will be proportionately
It's
more.
Substantially higher, only because square footage it isn't, but it's going to be higher because the costs are higher now than they were in 2000 when I built the other hangars. So what I'm basing my estimate on I'm figuring it's going to cost $250 to $280 a month for the new hangars, because it's more expensive to build them now than it was before. And I have a policy of not overreaching, even though I have a hangar list. I have those 22 hangars full, and I have 35 other people that would like to be in hangars. I'm not going to charge an exorbitant amount just because those names are there. I've never had an empty hangar at the airport.
Well, let me restate my question. Those 2 hangars are seemingly, if you look at the floor space, they're larger than the other 20. So are you going to be charging more for those 2 hangars than the 20 that are the same size?
I don't understand what you're talking about.
This hangar?
Oh, I see. Oh, these 2. Yeah, these deluxe hangars on the end. Yes, they will be.
Okay, all right. So it's too late to get my name on the list?
No, you can put it on the list. It costs $15 a year to be on there. I'll put you right on there underneath everybody else.
Okay, thank you.
When you're 192.
Yeah,
I have,
And I'd like to make one more comment since I'm up here. I'd like to thank the grand jury for the very nice report they gave me. And the reason they could do that, of course, was because the supervisors, the building department, county council, the planning department, all of those parts of the county have worked so well with the airport. It's just been a pleasure to work with all the building people.
Are there any questions, Kathy or Shirley? I have one. If it costs less to build than what is estimated, where is that money then not taken from?
I won't borrow the full amount.
Okay, well, I didn't know if it would be that or the grant. That was the question.
No, the grant money will not be lowered, because I'll get what I can, because that doesn't have to be paid back.
Okay.
That's a aviation
Got it.
goodie that I get.
That's fine.
But if they'll come back in lower, that means that our payments won't be as much. I won't have to charge as much for hangars. It's all figured on paying them off in 17 years. That's how I base mine.
Now, will the rent you're charging pay for that plus maintenance and operating?
The first 17 years, there shouldn't be any maintenance, but yes, it will. Yes, plus all of the hangars at the airport that I get rent for are paid for. And I think there's a couple more years on the ones I did in 2000. But almost all of that money is there for maintenance.
Are there any other questions or comments from the board?
Are we taking 20 and 21 together?
Yes, thank you. May I have a motion on 20 and 21?
Mr. Segala, I think I wanted to...
Oh, is there any public comment? Mr. Scala doesn't want us to accept the grant. That's fine.
I couldn't help. I'm a pilot, and in Tuolumne County, I had a hangar. And the way I got the hangar was I had to buy a half interest in an airplane. And then I bought my partner out, because otherwise I'd have to wait 20 years to have a hangar for my own airplane. And one thing that was done over there, I'm not recommending you a no vote in this at all. And also Kathy's just a sweetheart. You know, she's wonderful.
That's a whole new criteria for grant application, I have to say.
Well, maybe the taxpayers are not calling her a sweetheart, but she's certainly a great administrator.
Our tax money doesn't go in that airport.
Yeah, another kind does. Well, anyway, one of the things that could be looked at in the future on airports, as well as other improvements, is privatization. In Tuolumne County, there was an experiment on that. They leased the land out to a property, to an owner who built the hangar themselves using private capital. No tax money, and also no money from the federal government went into to that improvement. The thing wasn't continued, and it wasn't expanded. If it were, there wouldn't be a waiting list where you have to wait 20 years in Tuolumne County. I don't have my airplane anymore, so I don't know what's happening currently, because I'm kind of old now, but if you would think about alternative ways of funding these kind of improvements using private capital, you can greatly lower taxes and also fees. Thank you.
That's interesting, Al. However, we have studied privatization of hangar usage, and it is not in the best interest of the county. We figured that out about 20 years ago when I got on board, and always you can find a contractor that'll come in and build, and you can lease the land for them. Auburn does it all the time. That's a minimal amount of money comes back to the county. Sure, there's the airplanes and the usage and that kind of stuff, but all in all, long range for the airport, ownership of the hangars is the best usage of the airport, particularly in our case, because once these hangars are built, that's the end of it. There's no more space at our airport, and that's just what Brent and I had looked at this a long time ago, and it is in the best interest for the county to own the facilities.
Okay, are there any other questions or comments? May I have a motion?
I just wanted to make one observation that this, we sometimes get criticized for not making decisions that are proactive for business, but I would venture to say that these 22 hangars will fill up with people that are active business people in this county, and I regard it as a very, very positive step forward for the economic development and economic improvement in the county. So I'm very supportive.
Is that a motion, Mr. Thomas?
Absolutely. I make a motion to approve both items 20 and 21.
Thank you.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Thanks, guys.
Passes on a 5-0. Thank you. We're going to take a 5-minute recess. There is some feedback
He probably should include
on those mics. There's some feedback. Do you know what that is? Because you can hear it.
Somebody's playing rock music.
On their microphone.
Okay, so that must be Supervisor Tryon. He's just his legs going like this and his hands are, got it.
And
So,
Well, I wouldn't be this way, but Marita fed me some chocolate. I'm just like a little kid. I'm bouncing and bouncing.
I'd like I'd like to move to item 22, the Sierra Nevada Forest and Community Initiative, possible action on adoption of a resolution. I'm going to turn it over to Supervisor Walensky first to introduce our speaker.
Yes, we have with us today Brandon Sanders, who's the Mount Whitney area representative for the Sierra Nevada Conservancy. That's an organization which is a state agency. It's a part of the, what's the State Department of Interior?
The Natural Resources.
Yes. It's the Department of Natural Resources is sort of a sub group of that. Brandon has graced this county with his good work for the last couple of years as the co-convener of the Calaveras-Amador Consensus Project, which is actually done a lot of the initial work and become one of the examples used to formulate the Sierra Nevada Forest and Community Initiative, which is what you'll be hearing about today. This initiative is going to be coming before all the boards of supervisors in the Sierra, as well as many cities and other organizations. But we have the honor of being the first up, and some of the reason for that is because so much of the work, again, has happened right here in the Central Sierra, Amador and Calaveras, as well as Tuolumne County, which has been working very hard, and Mariposa, which is part of our sub-region, the south-central region of the Sierra Nevada Conservancy. Anyway, Brandon's a bright young man, delightful to work with, and we're really glad to have him with us today.
Thanks, Steve. Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the board. Again, Brandon Sanders, area representative for the Conservancy. Thank you for the opportunity to present you with the Sierra Nevada Forest and Community Initiative. So I'm not going to belabor some of the existing conditions. I know that y'all are keenly aware of the challenges we face here in the Sierra, but you can kind of get a good sampling of some of the major issues. Definitely the risk of large damaging fires, general threats to the local environment, air quality impacts associated with fire. Unemployment is probably one of the largest issues facing not only Calaveras but many other parts of the Sierra Nevada region. We're definitely aware of the need to retain existing infrastructure and grow the existing economic base surrounding the forest and the associated values. And of course, one of the kind of major conditions underlying the entire discussion is just a long history of conflict, which is something we're trying to address through this initiative. So the goals associated with this effort are to reduce the risk of large damaging fires, promote and protect resources and their uses, definitely create jobs as a primary goal, and also looking at a more diverse range of wood products that come from forest management. And there are opportunities locally and around the region as it relates to biomass energy as well. So this is what we refer to as the infamous Walensky Woods. You'll see on the left-hand side there's an unmanaged plantation stand where the trees are, I believe, between 40 and 60 years old. The fact that they're growing so densely has limited their growth and also provided for a very high-risk area in terms of fire.
Although I need to mention that part on the left is not part of my land. That's the BLM land that surrounds most of Glencoe, Railroad Flat, West Point, and Wilseyville. Those plantations have been planted all over BLM properties and not managed for over 40 years.
Right, and so there is definitely a lot of opportunity to put local people to work in those stands. And on the right, you can kind of get an idea of what a more ideal forest condition would look like.
Same age trees.
Yeah.
And that's in Ebbets Pass.
No.
I'm sure there are comparable stands. I'm sure there are many comparable stands in the Highway 4 corridor as well. So this is a graphic that has been provided to us in partnership with the Forestry Association. You can see rates from 07 to 09. A lot of that can be attributed to kind of a lower level of activity as it relates to forestry, both on private and public lands. The initiative itself is going to be focusing primarily on the public lands facet of forest management. We are in partnership with industry and just a range of folks that we're working with on this initiative and that have already endorsed it. We have endorsements from the California Forestry Association, a number of state and national environmental nonprofits. So the major push here is to create jobs. There's definitely the economic activity associated with kind of traditional forest practices, but there's kind of been this more recent acknowledgement of the need to manage material that may not be as profitable as large diameter logs from a sawmill's perspective. I mean, the fire risk is oftentimes stems more from manzanita and those sorts of things, and so creating jobs around managing the higher risk fuel that may have a lower value, finding the balance there in terms of the economics and whatnot is a major part of this initiative. And so we definitely acknowledge the need for jobs creation, and it's a primary goal of the initiative.
What you see there is actually Calaveras manzanita being hauled out to go into a man-made lake to provide bass habitat, oddly enough, and they paid good money for it.
Nice. So that's some of the creative approaches that
for bass habitat
being explored.
If I could just ask a question, Steve, about this particular slide.
Yes.
You clarified some of a mystery. that I was looking at there, I mean, those set of doubles, 2,000 pounds of material on each of those trucks or the trailers. But would you ordinarily have a chipper? I mean,
almost all the stuff is chipped, but one of the goals for Calaveras anyway is to have a post and pole operation, which should be up and running this year.
Okay.
We're trying to diversify a forest industry that has actually been almost monodimensional. And the problem with our area is that dimension shut down. So we still have the forest, we still have a whole lot of material that needs to come out of it. It will in one way or another, catastrophic fire being probably the most likely unless we get out ahead of it. So although this was a single contract for a bass habitat, there are many different uses for forest. Landscape chips, some animal bedding, shredded cedar primarily, also post and pole, firewood, and chips for cogeneration of electricity are the primary ones that we anticipate beginning this next year.
Okay, thank you.
And so a key part of this initiative, as I've said earlier, is focusing in on the public land throughout the Sierra. The federal government, as we all know, owns a substantial portion of the range. And as part of that, it's been acknowledged that in order for the jobs and economic activity to benefit the local community, there needs to be basically an effort within the Forest Service and those other federal land managers to prioritize those opportunities for locals. And so it's one thing for a smaller group from, say, a single county to approach the individual forest or that ranger district and request some sort of priority to be given. Whereas if we had all 22 counties on the same page as it relates to a collaborative process, then potentially we could approach the regional office in Vallejo and make it a region-wide initiative to focus the economic benefits locally as opposed to, let's say, timber operators from Oregon or Idaho coming in